this week, I thought I would definitely have a larger conversation because one offhanded comment that I made during the video about Xbox's plans for CES, and we're going to get into that, really had the internet up in a bit of a tizzy, talking about how great console sales are for PlayStation and how great PlayStation's doing and everything. The problem with a lot of the discourse is it's entirely focused around 1 month of the year, from tweets that Matt Piscatella made where he was talking about specifically November and how well PlayStation was doing in November. Their hardware sales were up 15% year over year because they launched a new piece of hardware, which I would hope it would be up year over year when they're launching new hardware. And I want to talk about how console hardware sales just are not growing. I brought up several different analysts. Now, Matt Piscatella deleted his Twitter, so I had to go find somebody who had sourced the specific tweet from Matt Piscatella, and my computer's running really weird today, so yeah. Here's what Matt Piscatella said about video game hardware in April of this year. That was April of this year. So just to be crystal clear about where I'm getting this from, I'm getting it from analysts like Matt Piscatella. The thing about people on Twitter, they will look at one little piece of information. PlayStation sold very well in November, but they don't look at the overall picture. You got to look at the whole picture. You can't just laser and focus on one specific month. PlayStation themselves have said they are reducing their forecast for hardware sales. So let's talk a little bit about this. Here's what Matt Piscatella, the same person that's being lauded as this prophet about how well PlayStation is doing, here's what he said about the console market. The US video game hardware market peaked in 2008. Share of console purchases is increasingly swinging to older folks. Zoomers care less about consoles than prior gens, and alphas may never care. Every video game company is thinking about expansion beyond console. They have to. When I make statements like the hardware market isn't growing, that is a true fact. Circana, Matt Piscatella knows this. Michael Pachter has known this. He has made statements about it. Phil Spencer knows this. Hiroki Totoki knows this. He says it during the PlayStation earnings calls. And yet when I say such an innocuous, true statement that the hardware is not growing, I am met with this ridiculous backlash as though I'm making it up out of thin air. I'm just like gaslit for some strange reason. And I think we all know what that reason is. It's because I would dare say that hardware sales are not growing. Now, here's what I'm not saying, to be extra clear. I am not saying PlayStation is doing poorly. PlayStation is doing great in terms of hardware sales. But there is a big chance that they do not see growth. If they do see growth, it will be minor. It will be very, very small. Anybody who works in the industry knows the console hardware business is struggling. These statistics of a 15% growth for the hardware business are after a 27% decline year over year. And what did PlayStation have to say about that specific decline? Solid Q1 for Sony, but PS5 hardware unit sales down 27% year over year. That was in August. I'm not saying Xbox hardware is doing well either. Xbox hardware is not doing well. I think at best, I have a whole video about how bad Xbox is doing in terms of hardware sales. Hardware sales across the board, even in those Matt Piscatella tweets, or Blue Skies or whatever, he's saying that they're down. Hardware is down. And then we have other compelling things coming in the next year that could further negatively impact those hardware sales. What I'm not saying, first of all, I am not saying that PlayStation is doing poorly. PlayStation is doing great. They're selling very, very well in hardware. They are also saying, though, that they are reducing their forecast for consoles sold. There is not going to be this explosive growth in the console market where PlayStation sees a 20% year-over-year growth in their sales. So here are these Matt Piscatella tweets that everybody like, oh, look, Matt Piscatella says doing great. In November, you all. He's specifically talking about November, just November. And let's dive into that a little bit. So why would Xbox, who has said that the hardware business, they have lost the hardware business, they're not going to win the console race, they've lost it, they've adjusted their strategies, they've made that clear for like 5 years, they've been talking about this, right? I think it's the 2-year anniversary of Phil Spencer going on Kind of Funny and saying, we lost the console war. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. So they buy Activision, they buy Bethesda. How has that been working out for them? What, chat, do you think was the #1 most sold game on the PlayStation 5 in November in these Matt Piscatella tweets? What game do you think sold the best on PlayStation in November? Take a guess. Anybody. I'll give you a hint. Microsoft owns it. It's a Microsoft-owned property now. Call of Duty. It was the #1 best-selling game in November on PlayStation. What do you think was the #1 overall best-selling game in November? November 2024, top 20 best-selling premium games, US dollar sales, physical and digital. What game do you think was the #1 best-selling game? It was Call of Duty. It wasn't the #1, but what do you think the #2 game for the year was in November? #1 was college football for the whole year. COD came out end of October, I believe. The November report comes in. What's the #2 game for the year? Call of Duty. Do you want me to keep going? Let's go a little step further. What was the most played game on PlayStation 5 in November? Call of Duty. What was the most played game on Xbox? Call of Duty. What was the #3 most played game on PC? Call of Duty. But you know what's funny? You know what the #2 most played game on PC was for November? A PlayStation game. Helldivers 2. The console business is flat, is the point that I'm trying to make. Both of these companies are looking at ways to expand their market share beyond the console. PlayStation's best game, Helldivers, is the #2 most played game on PC in November, which is very surprising for me. And you can see all that in this report here. Year to date, ending November 2024, the top 20 best-selling premium games: college football, Call of Duty, Helldivers, Dragon Ball. So it's doing quite well for everybody. Audio's fine. Thank you, chat. But the pushback that I got was that I made a comment about hardware sales not increasing. So why does Destin think that? Matt Piscatella said November PlayStation did great, and they did. And I'm not trying to take that away from the fans. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. You can have your November sales. And yes, Xbox did bad in November. Oh, you got it. What did PlayStation say, though? They set a sales record, but they missed their target, and they predict further decline this year. PS5 narrowly missed Sony's sales target of 21 million, itself revised down from its initial ultra-aggressive sales target of 25. So not only did they miss 25, but they missed 21. This is in May of this year. And they're below their target. I am looking at the numbers in earnest and saying, okay, PlayStation is selling very well in terms of hardware. That's great. That is true. And more than one thing can be true at the same time. PlayStation can be doing really well in terms of console sales with the PlayStation 5, But it can also be true that the console market isn't seeing growth. That is why Xbox is diversifying their strategies. That is why there's the whole "this is an Xbox" ad campaign. They lost the console war. So it's like Xbox said 2 years ago PlayStation won, and PlayStation fans are running around saying, look how much we won. And it's like, guys, we moved on. Everybody else has moved on from the console war. Everybody's looking towards the future and the future strategies and the future and how the market is shifting and where people are going to be playing, where people are spending their money, where people are spending their time. And PlayStation fans are still like, even if I say something as innocuous as console sales are flat, people lose their mind online. Imagine console warring in 2024. And then Matt Piscatella, even himself said, let's bring it up again. The US video game hardware market peaked in 2008. This was in April. He's not saying that the console market is dead, that consoles are going away, but he's saying it peaked in 2008 and that it's shifted. The whole market is changing. Shares of console purchases increasingly swinging to older folks. Zoomers care less about console than prior gens, and alphas may never care. Every video game company is thinking about expansion beyond console. They have to. That's the fact of the matter, is that they need to think about it. Then I was like, well, who else has talked about this? Here's Daniel Ahmad's comments. The short answer is that Sony and Microsoft are increasingly responding to a reality of a console install base that hasn't expanded from prior generations, both in terms of absolute sales and demographics. It's why console platform holders have focused on maximizing spending per user on their own platforms, whether through increased subscription pricing, premium hardware, or $70 games. It's also why they are exploring live services, PC, mobile, and Switch in order to expand their audience, increase revenue, and drive higher profit margins. That's two analysts, one being Matt Piscatella, the same one everybody's parading around saying like, oh, look, he says PlayStation doing great. He's the same dude that says the console market peaked in 2008. And then everybody gets upset when I bring up Michael Pachter, but he's been saying it for years. The console install base is as big as it's ever going to get. Growth in the traditional gamer market could require leaving traditional consoles behind, says Michael Pachter. He said this back in 2015. This isn't new information to anybody who follows the trends, anybody who's been actually watching the news, anybody who actually reads about this stuff. Two things can be true. PlayStation can be doing very well in terms of console sales, and console sales can also not be seeing growth. Both of those things are true at the same time. And I think that's one thing we struggle with online, being able to hold two truths at once. So the one truth is, yeah, PlayStation's doing really well. The other truth is the hardware market isn't growing. It's just not. Here's what Phil Spencer said about it. Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo console market isn't growing, Phil Spencer says. The console space isn't growing across all of them. Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. We love those customers, but in terms of continuing to expand and grow Xbox, it's about PC, it's about cloud, and it's about making our games more available in more places. That was in Rolling Stone in November of this year. Just because the console market isn't growing, that doesn't mean Microsoft is abandoning consoles. Spencer and Microsoft will definitely do more consoles in the future, as well as other devices. None of this is a surprise, as Microsoft has already confirmed a next-gen Xbox that promises the largest technical leap in Xbox history. As for other devices, Spencer may be referring to the Xbox handheld device that is a few years out. They're diversifying their portfolio. Now, Xbox console sales are down. They're doing quite poorly, but they're still on pace with what they were doing in, I believe Matt Piscatella said, the 360 era, and they're on pace with what they were doing in the Xbox One era. And by my own estimates, I also discussed how they're still going to have about a 60 million user install base. This idea that Xbox should pack it up because they only have 60 million users on the console base is what I don't agree with from a fundamental perspective. It's crazy that you would think that Xbox should just call it a day. Oh, we only have 60 million users. I guess we should just hang up the towel. Hang it up, everybody. We're done. We only hit 60 million users. PlayStation has like the consoles cap out are about 100 million. One major Ryan says 60 million is not big. You were just touting 70 million for PlayStation. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be talking about how great 70 million is for PlayStation, but 60 million is bad for Xbox. And like, that's the craziness that I see online. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't use one thing as a dig for Xbox and one thing as a victory for PlayStation 5, right? That's the funny part about it. And if you look at overall, go over to Wikipedia, they readily have these numbers available. The PlayStation 2 is still on top. I have seen some stories about how the Switch might have surpassed the PlayStation 2, released in 2017. So I think the Switch might be the first console to slightly surpass what the PS2 did. And the PlayStation 5 is still not outpacing the PlayStation 4. PlayStation 5 is way down here. This is where we're at with PlayStation 5. The 3DS, the PSP, the Game Boy Advance, the 360, PS3, the Wii, the PlayStation, PS4, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo DS, and the PS2 are still ahead of the PlayStation 5. Now, the argument that gamers are making is that PlayStation is doing so well in the console market that by the end of it, it's going to outsell all of those, and it will be a point on the graph that shows that there is console sales growth. It's not going to happen. Switch beat PS2 sales in the USA. Okay. Yeah, because the PS2, they updated the website to be 160 million, and I don't know where they're at with the Switch global lifetime right now. But I do think the Switch is the first console that could potentially have outsold the PlayStation 2 lifetime sales. And that says a lot about the Nintendo Switch and how good it is, even currently. Graphics matter so little to most people that the Nintendo Switch is trouncing where PlayStation and Xbox are. So, long story short, I just wanted to have a candid conversation about this because online, I made a very simple statement, like during the video where I was talking about Xbox, and I made a little joke tweet about it, and that got everybody all riled up. What did I say? Me. Console sales are down for everyone. Internet. Here's 5 paragraphs about why Xbox is bad and why PlayStation and Nintendo are doing fantastic and you're wrong and why your video sucks. Let's go read the comments on my last video. Console sales are down for everybody. 15% spending growth on PS5 hardware was offset by a 29% year-on-year drop in Xbox spending. Destin reading a quote from Matt Piscatella. Just stop, Destin. The playing field is not even, and it's clear that console sales have been overall down because Xbox hardware sales have cratered. This combination with the Switch being in a later stages and console sales haven't been great for the past 2 years. When the new Switch releases, Xbox will be the only weak link in the console hardware equation. Just let it go. Consoles, PlayStation and Nintendo are doing fine. Xbox hardware is not constantly spinning out into an even playing field, or a Microsoft says Xbox positive is making your content suffer. What prompted that comment? Me saying that console sales are down for everybody. I'm referring to lifetime sales of consoles, and everybody has slashed their projections for their console sales. PlayStation has, Nintendo has. Like, you can Google this stuff. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Matt Piscatella's earnings analysis for November. And what's really frustrating, what's great about the audience is most people get what I'm saying in the comments. But if you're a PlayStation fan, you get really mad when I say anything that would dare detract from PlayStation having a good November. And to be fair, Xbox fans get pretty mad when I say something like, I really like that this is an Xbox commercial. It happens with every console. Like, nothing I can say is quite right for everybody. And I'm just making general statements about where everything is. Talking about graphics, even Mark Cerny in his tech breakdown said we are hitting the limits of rasterized graphics. Yeah, we're not going to see massive leaps in terms of graphical performance. Does anybody still not understand where I'm coming from? Does anybody still want to argue I'm broad brushing again? What are you talking about? So let me get this straight. I have quotes from PlayStation and Nintendo saying that their hardware sales probably aren't going to increase and that they're lowering their projections. I have 3 separate analysts who all agree that the console life cycle is going to not see growth, and that console sales peaked in 2008, even from Matt Piscatella. I have shown the numbers from the manufacturers that say their numbers are going to be down. And you think I'm painting with a broad brush. No, it's called being thorough. I have thoroughly explained my stance. I have shown that Xbox hardware is flat. Xbox is probably going to sell around 60 million units. PlayStation, I think maybe they match the PlayStation 4. If they do better than the PlayStation, if the PlayStation 5 does better than the PlayStation 4, I think that's great. But what do you really think like they're going to double what the PlayStation 4 did? Does anybody in chat think that PlayStation will sell double what the PlayStation 5 will sell double what the PlayStation 4 did? No, I'm talking lifetime. I think Xbox lifetime is going to sell about 60 million, which is what they capped out at in the Xbox One era. So I think the Xbox Series X and S series of consoles will cap around 60. That's what I'm saying. To be clear. Does anybody think that the PlayStation 5 will double the sales of PlayStation 4? Nobody thinks that. If you do, you're wrong. Okay, does anybody think they will sell 50% more PlayStation 5s than PlayStation 4s? 50% more. So let's see, what did the PlayStation 4 sell? So the PlayStation 5 in 2020, launched in 2020, it's at 65.6 million, according to Wikipedia. The PlayStation 4 sold 117.2 million units to date, and they're still selling PlayStation 4s. Do you think that the PlayStation 5 will sell 170 million units? I believe that's about the right amount, right? That'd be 50% more. They're at 65.6 million. They would have to sell 105 million more consoles. Nope. Nobody thinks that in chat. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Some people in chat don't think that the PlayStation 5 is going to outsell the PlayStation 4. So what are we arguing about? Nobody in chat thinks. A lot of people in chat don't even think that the PlayStation 5 is going to outsell the PlayStation 4. So what are we arguing about? We're agreeing. We agree that console sales are flat. It's the truth. If you compare PlayStation to PlayStation, there is a good chance that PlayStation will not outsell PlayStation. One Major Ryan says, we aren't arguing, just stating that the Xbox future in hardware is dead. I wouldn't say it's dead. I think they're going to cap out at 60 million. you want me to bring up my crazy numbers? Chat, should I bring up my crazy person Xbox numbers? All right. This is a little hard to read because it's an Excel spreadsheet. It is what it is. And I was sort of trying to do some analysis about where Xbox is and where PlayStation and stuff. Okay. So the 360, I went through these numbers are directly from the earnings reports from PlayStation, from Xbox, to look at where each console was and where they are currently, right? So the 360, these are based off of official reports, capped out around 84 million. And I have sources linked to each just in case I forgot. This is from an official Xbox report. The Xbox One capped out around 58 million in 2023. The Xbox Series X is slightly trailing behind. That's my estimate. My estimate is that they are slightly behind where the Xbox One was at 29.9 million. These are Destin estimates, by the way, so take them with a grain of salt. But in the Take-Two earnings call, we were able to place in 2023, year 4 of the console, that they were around 25 to 27.7 million units sold, which puts them comparable to where the Xbox One was. So that's where I'm getting my 60 million unit number by the end of their life cycle. But when it's all said and done, I think console sales for Xbox will likely be around 60 million units sold. And we have a little bit of data. This is old data. I need to update it, but let's look at how PlayStation is doing. So PlayStation 4, they were at 19. They're at 19.3. So they had 0.3 more sales when you compare year over year. These are a little skewed, though, because of the launch of the consoles a little off. Anyway, they were at 36. They're at 38. They were at 56. They're at 59. They were at 75. There's the dip. They're at 61.6. For the 2024 fiscal year, they needed to be at 75.7 to match where the PlayStation 4 was. And, I mean, we can just update this in real time. What's Wikipedia saying? They're saying they're at 65.6. This is where their graph, the PlayStation graph has been going like this, and now it's going to taper off like this. I do think we see a bump from the PlayStation 5 Pro. But hardware sales are flat. They're not seeing growth. Every analyst agrees that they're not seeing growth. There we go. That's where I'm coming from. And I've been very thorough in explaining where I'm coming from. I'm not crazy. This isn't like some crazy Destin thing. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not like making this stuff up, you guys. Let me be very clear. Xbox hardware sales are in the toilet. I'm never going to say, wow, look how great Xbox has been doing in hardware. They're not doing great. They're doing quite poorly. I think I have a whole video on my channel talking about, hey, I think they're going to sell quite badly. I think they undersell what the Xbox One sold. They're not doing well. And that is why they are diversifying. So, going forward, what's their strategy going to be? Even though they're not selling well and they're slashing their forecast for hardware sales, they're still probably going to sell, and I just showed you the numbers, they're still probably going to sell 60 million units. They have more people playing on Xbox than ever before, which is something that they've talked about publicly. They have more people spending money, even though they have a smaller install base on their console than ever before. And it's because they've diversified. They have the #1 selling game in the world on PlayStation with Call of Duty. And every time a PlayStation user buys those microtransactions, where do you think that money goes? Every time a PlayStation user buys a copy, a $70 or $100 or whatever copy of Call of Duty, where do you think that money goes? Or Diablo or any of the Activision games? All of that money goes to Xbox. Xbox is having PlayStation and PlayStation fans fund them. It's a big reason why Satya Nadella is looking at the sales figures and saying, yeah, maybe we should launch more games on PlayStation. Consoles are going to change in the future. Think about it this way. Would you rather have a very expensive console, or would you rather technology allows you to just stream right to your television or right to your browser? And you don't need the physical console. You could still buy one, but if you had the option and the technology was flawless, would you rather turn on your TV and be able to play your Xbox? Or would you rather go get a box, put it in your house? Like, say you're a PlayStation fan and you want to play an Xbox exclusive, right? Would you rather boot up an app on your PlayStation 5 and play that Xbox game? Or would you rather go buy an Xbox, hook it up, and have two consoles in your house? Here's the thing. There's not a wrong answer to that question. If you choose hardware, the hardware is still going to be available. If you choose to use the browser methodology, assuming that they get the technology filled out, then you can do it that way also. There's no wrong answer to that question. And that's what Xbox realized years ago. You can play Xbox wherever you want. This is an Xbox. That's the whole premise behind the marketing campaign. And that's why the console sales conversation, it's going to change drastically for PlayStation. And PlayStation fans, buckle up, because you're going to be out there full battle armor ready, defending the methodology of releasing games on PC at shorter and shorter windows. Oh no, it's different. It's different when PlayStation, and I've seen this so much online. It's so different now that PlayStation's doing it, but it's not the same as when it's not the same day. So it's different, and PlayStation's doing great and the console's doing so good. No. They're going to do day and date with multiplayer games. Marathon's going to be day and date on Xbox, just like Call of Duty was day and date on PlayStation. They're not going to like throw away money. These are companies that want your money. They're all billion-dollar companies. Oh, I'm sorry, trillion. Xbox is a $1 trillion company, right? And PlayStation's $1 billion. Did I get that right? And Nintendo's still in the billions. It's like you're talking about Microsoft, a $1 trillion company, and $2 billion companies, and we're fighting about who sold more consoles, a market that hasn't grown since 2008. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming from with the whole thing. That's how it is. That's the truth. The truth is that, what I said. So you can get mad about it and you can react to it, and obviously you're going to come at me on Twitter or whatever when I'm not paying attention to it and I'm doing stuff with my family. But it's the truth. And I know I'm not wrong. I know that the console market is flat. My point isn't even my point. It's from Phil Spencer. It's from Matt Piscatella. It's from Daniel Ahmad. It's from Michael Pachter. It's from Pierce Harding Rolls. It's from every video game analyst who advises these companies. It's from PlayStation. It's from Microsoft. It's from Nintendo. They're all saying this in their earnings calls. No. I'm not saying 70 million in 4 years is bad. I'm sure they're going to have a nice console that maybe outsells the PlayStation 4, but I don't think it will. Nobody's saying 70 million in 4 years is bad. See, that's the thing. I say the console market is flat, and then you say, oh, 70 million is bad. Did I say 70 million is bad? No. I said they're not going to outsell I don't know if the PlayStation 5 will outsell the PlayStation 4. There's a chance it could, but it's not going to be by 50%. Maybe they sell 120 million by the end of the life cycle, and they sell like 4 million more units than the PlayStation 4 did. But that's what percentage of growth is that? That's like 1%. Dean Files, $20. More games platforms equals sales. It's not rocket science. It's also not 2010 anymore. Xbox is now ahead in almost every category on the planet. Next box will be amazing, even if just a niche option. Oh yeah, PC is PlayStation now. Absolutely. So wait. So I listed Daniel Ahmad, Pierce Harding Rolls, Hiroki Totoki, by the way, the guy who runs Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, Satya Nadella, and I listed Michael Pachter also on that list. And what's the response? Oh, we're going to believe what Michael Pachter says now? Michael Pachter and the 7 other people I listed. Yeah, Nintendo had to slash their projections also for the console market. Nintendo cuts Switch sales forecast after a weak first half. Net profit dropped 60% from a year earlier. That was in November. That was November, you guys. That was like a month ago. And then the amount of like Switch sales are down because the next Switch is coming next year. PS5 sales are down for these reasons. And here are all these reasons. Guys, all I said was that the console market isn't growing. So just to recap, all of this nonsense is literally just because I said the console market isn't growing. And it's not. It's an accurate statement. It's been out for 7 years. It's hard to forecast sales. Well, Nintendo is saying it's going to sell less than they expected. And PlayStation is saying they're going to sell less than they expected. And Xbox is saying they're going to sell less than they expected. Those November numbers from Matt Piscatella include the new hardware that they just launched. That PlayStation just launched. And it's after a 27% loss year over year, a decline year over year last quarter. So in August, the official earnings from PlayStation said we're negative 27% year over year. And then November comes out and it is a 15% year over year bump, according to Piscatella. We don't have the official statement from PlayStation yet, but I'm willing to bet that the PlayStation 5 Pro seems to have sold very well for them. Which I don't know what that means about hardware going forward, but it means our consoles are going to be more expensive. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think so. Like, just to get out of the PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo of it all, I think we're at a saturation point in terms of the console industry, and we've been there for a decade. And these companies know that, all of them, and they need to figure out new ways. And this, I did a whole piece on IGN earlier in the year about this. And this is what I'm actually discussing. These companies need to really think about how they're going to change in the next 10 years. These companies aren't looking at like September. They have to greenlight games that are going to be developed over the next decade. So you think about Xbox. Phil Spencer is going to be retiring in the next decade. So in the next 10 years, Phil Spencer's gone. In the next 10 years, Sony is going to have a new CEO. Nintendo's probably going to have, everything's going to be different in 10 years. So we're all focused on November. It's like, I was thinking about this earlier. It's like, just to be super corny for a second, it's like looking at a Van Gogh painting, but all you look at is his nose. Just like one little square piece of his nose. And you never zoom out and you look at the bigger picture about what's happening in the next 10 years and what's happening over the next year. I think Xbox has done okay. PlayStation has done great. They have a lot of great exclusives. They're doing well with their console sales, but they probably won't outsell the PlayStation 4 because there's too much competition in the landscape right now. There is PC, which is a huge market for PlayStation. Helldivers is the number one game of the year, number 2 game of the year. I think Call of Duty will take it eventually. But it's crazy. I think I've made my point pretty clear. I think you know where I'm coming. I've been talking for an hour. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you do like my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell. Hopefully I get over this cold in the near future. I do greatly appreciate you watching. Thank you so much to the members for supporting. I really do appreciate you just hanging out, but I also appreciate that you support the channel and letting me do this. If you want to be a member, you can click that join button. I'm going to get out of here. You can check out my previous video where I talked about Xbox having something up their sleeve for CES. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.